and welcome to Into the Light. I'm your host, Edina Mauvana. Today we have Marc Abrams. Marc is a spiritual coach and energy healer who helps light workers connect to the quantum field and discover their life purpose. Through spiritual coaching, Marc guides individuals to connect with their true selves. His energy healing sessions reduce stress and anxiety while enhancing spiritual awareness, helping clients awaken spiritually and align with their soul's purpose. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for being here, Marc. I'm so nice to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, I just love following you and the work that you do. I know you post a lot on Instagram. You're always talking about our spiritual awakening and ascension process and what the quantum field is. And I just love your work so much because I feel like it's great for, no matter what kind of spiritual or religious background we might come from, that your work really talks to anyone who's experiencing really relevant symptoms like exhaustion, fatigue, ascension,
Mhm.
things happening to our bodies. And no one really understands what's going on right now. I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
are just waking up to this.
Oh, it's couldn't have said it better. It's these things start to come forward in you, and it's all what is happening, what's going on, and we always want to look to like external things to try to figure out what's causing us to feel a certain way. But
Yeah.
from what my experiences, what I've realized is that there is just an awakening happening within each and every one of us that is getting us back in tune with and
Mm,
reminding us who we truly are. We've gotten so lost and caught up in this human avatar that we
yeah.
forget this expansive, limitless, energetic being that we are.
Like we're physical vessels, like they say in so many spiritual traditions, how we're really just spiritual beings having a physical experience,
Hmm.
right? And now, so tell me a little bit about how you're helping people through who's coming to you, who are you working with, what are they experiencing as far as physical ascension symptoms, and how you're helping them on the healing journey here.
Yeah, a lot with the individual symptoms, fatigue, exhaustion, things like that. But from a bigger perspective, a bigger picture, I'm working with people who have really they just are feeling lost in life. Like they
Mm,
have this sense that they're here for something greater. They can't quite get in tune with that. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of not knowing, maybe feeling a lack of purpose, an unfulfilled feeling, those
right.
types of things. People are coming to me and they're saying, especially in my A New You program, they're saying, Marc, I just have tried everything. I've listened to you on YouTube and Instagram, and I just cannot get out of my own way. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. And they'll join my program. I'll work with them. And over the course of 6 months or so, we'll go through and I will literally guide them through all the blockages and things that have been holding them back.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like a one-to-one when they're working with you for 6 months or so, and they just working on different areas of their life and clearing these blockages.
It's a group and a one-on-one. So it's a hybrid
Mhm.
program. So it's a combination of both where people could get together and actually hear what others are going through and then be able to apply that to them as well. And then they get one-on-one time
Mm,
with me. And then there's support from me where they can reach out anytime when they feel stuck. And that's the most important piece there because sometimes, and I'm sure you're on this journey, something comes up, you get triggered, you get really stuck, and everything that you've learned flies out the window. It's okay. How do I get out of this one now? I'm feeling
right.
so heavy. So those are the kind of things that I help people through, and it allows them to get present, get centered, connect with the quantum field, and
Mm,
start to be able to open up and perceive their greater being than just that
hmm.
human avatar.
That's definitely important, especially when you start to understand things from like an energy perspective and
Hmm.
then really launch into the whole quantum field, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, so from a spiritual perspective, since you're helping people connect to their sort of their soul purpose, right, or
Mhm.
aligning with, do you feel like we have a sort of a moral obligation at some point in our lives that we're going to be confronted with, or that we have a sort of like moral obligation to figure out what our sole purpose is here, and either we're leaning into that purpose or we're just rejecting something, and we're going to be like, I know that monotheistic religions are talking about, then you really got to fear God if you're going to turn your back away from
Yeah.
your purpose. So I'm just curious, from your perspective, is that something that you feel like we're all is mandatory here on this planet in this human experience, or is it something
Well, I
more?
think for me, what's mandatory, I think, is just coming in here to experience the whole of who you are. And that
Mm,
includes the things that we may judge as darker and of course the light. So the whole experience is part of why we're here. This reality, this time-space reality, gives you the ability to experience a separation and being cut off from your light,
Yeah.
right? So think about like when we're born, we're thrown into a dark room, the lights shut off, right? We're crawling around in the dark and we forget there's a light switch there to even turn on, right? We get separated from our light. So this experience is really being able to experience the breadth of frequencies which come through as emotional states, both what we judge as good and bad, and being able to navigate all of that and accept all of that because it's all our experiences, it's all us, right? We don't want to reject any part of us. So if we turn away from the light, we're rejecting the light. If we turn away from the dark, we're rejecting the dark. So we don't want to really reject any of it. It's just all part of the experience.
And hence my Into the Light with Edina Mauvana. I love that because you really connected the concepts that I got fascinated with in my own spiritual journey. Like you were mentioning, I think even this illusion of separation, what they call it, where we're here and we're experiencing this process of moving from being like, even with concepts of God, that God is outside or other than us, and that it's like a judgmental God or a fearful God. Like it's an experience of breaking down that process of otherness in all areas, even as humanity.
How we define it, like each culture, I think, defines that differently, right?
Yeah. And so that separation is really, do you feel like that's an important part of your work, is helping people through this illusion of separation, or some people call it like we're in the matrix or we're moving into 5D, new earth? Like how does all of that match up, and what are all these terms that are being thrown at us?
It's finding the doorway or the portal to being able to navigate back to more of the truth of who you are, which is a being of light, an energetic being. The more we identify as the human, the more particle we become, right? We're more particle. It's quantum physics.
Dense, yeah.
Yeah, more dense. So that's the lower density. And we have these fearful emotions and things like that keep us anchored into this reality, and they're necessary. It's when we start to judge things as good and bad is where we get a little bit tripped up, right? Because then we're not accepting an aspect of us. When you can learn how to roll with the experience and realize that every experience, even if your mind wants to judge it as good or bad, is showing you something about you. If you can accept that and follow, those breadcrumbs will lead you back to more of that limitless being. It'll start to open up to you realities that were always there, but you were just turned away from them. You just know because of your beliefs and your limitations and programming.
Whatever religious or cultural programming we have from a kid. And I know you're mentioning a lot of things like we're limitless, we're made of energy, we're light beings. Tell me a little bit about your religious background. Did you come from a sort of a Christian background, or how did you come into this more different type of spiritual approach that you have now?
I was actually born and raised Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Judaism, into a Jewish family. And I just never really embraced religion in general. My whole upbringing, I was always more interested in paranormal and supernatural and UFOs and ghosts, all that kind of stuff, right? That's what I was really interested in growing up. And I had amazing experiences in my youth and my childhood. I had visitations when I was young and connected with spirit things. I had actually being come into my room periodic, like once a year. These were my star guides.
Okay.
And didn't really know what that was all about. But in 2018, everything shifted for me. I was working as an accountant for 20 years. So it was very 3D profession, right? Very logic-based. Always had this interest, never really religious, but I had an experience where I popped out of my body. I was just laying out in my backyard one morning, popped out of my body, had all of this information downloaded. It just dropped into me in a heartbeat. All this information about the universe, the quantum field, gravity, physics, all sorts of stuff. Shortly before that, I had actually connected with my spirit guide in a guided meditation. So all of this was coming together at the same time. It opened me up. I connected with the Galactic Federation. They came forward, helped me clear blockages, and then had basically reminded me of a mission I had here on Earth, which was to help others start to release their limiting beliefs, their limitations, and start to be able to expand and just help people navigate that process. So I had all sorts of guides coming forward. I had deceased relatives coming forward. This was during a period of time where I lost both my parents. They both had passed really suddenly. So my dad, a little bit, he was sick for a while, but that came on really fast. And then my mom just really sudden. All of that happening, amazing connection with my Pleiadian guide, the Galactic Federation, my spirit guide, all sorts of things just opened up. All orchestrated, right? When you look
Mm.
back on it, you can see how this is all orchestrated. And from that, I just dove in full feet, both feet, full force. So it's not like this was an interest per se. It's like my world just blew wide open and I stepped into a new role.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been hearing a lot about a galactic family, Galactic
Mhm.
Federation. I know you mentioned a few of these Pleiadian. I think a lot of people are pretty still new to these terminology and this whole concept, and that we have certainly from the Muslim background. I think that we have this understanding that we might not only be the only creation of God, but that there could be these extraterrestrials. So yeah, that opens up a whole other area of what's happening and why is it
Mhm.
happening now? Like, how are we now being like transcending a lot of the barriers of like religions, and how is all this structure breaking down and like advancing us into these next levels of human
Yeah.
consciousness? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because we could look, and guides will manifest or appear based on your context, your
Mm.
background. So if you're very religious, you may see more of angelic presence. If you were more, I was into UFOs and things, I had guides manifest as ETs. I call them star guides.
Okay.
But sure enough, these beings exist. They exist on a higher frequency, but they're all aspects of us. So I have
Mm.
communicated with my star guides, my Pleiadian guide, for example, from the human perspective and from my Pleiadian aspect. So
Mm.
we think of like a ladder, right? It's like a frequency ladder. And wherever you're focused, that's the reality that you're going to experience. So if you're more focused into the fear, into the 3D, more separate, maybe more religious based, you're going to experience that kind of a reality. As you start to expand your consciousness and you start to remember that you exist in multi-dimensional planes of existence, you start to be able to have experiences that align with that. That's just all part of the remembering of who
Yeah,
you
and
are.
what do you say when people ask you, okay, so where are we going? Is 5D a like an end destination? Is it a new Earth? Or like how do you answer that question where people are confused about like, what is 5D and how are we actually getting there right now?
Yeah, that's moving more from the linear timeline thinking way of being into a heart-centered space.
Mm,
So
hmm.
we're becoming more present as a species, okay, as the human collective is becoming more present. They're working to, going through a lot of dark night of the souls and a collective
Yeah.
dark night of the soul, but we're moving into the heart space. And when we get into the heart space, we get more present, we get more aligned, we start to trust that we have everything that we need within us. So we start judging less and start holding more of a space of compassion. Okay, we start
Mm.
to become the observer of what we're manifesting in our reality, starting to become the cause of that, not the effect of it. So everything flips around. It's like flipping to the other side of the coin and realizing that you're a creator, heart-based creator of your reality, and not a force-based creator of your reality using old, outdated, linear ways of thinking.
Yeah, and I was thinking about I think I've heard you talk on your Instagram about the concept of our highest self or our
Mhm.
multidimensional, like the new you that
Mhm.
we're trying to like a lot of times in manifestation, we're talking about timelines or being on our highest timeline, that kind
Right.
of thing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
tell me, how does that work when someone is trying to understand these concepts that we're moving frequencies and we're jumping timelines? How do you end up talking about how we're going to like actually embody that newest, highest level version of ourselves?
We're always moving in and out of timelines throughout our day. So it's all frequency based. So the
Mm.
more heart centered, the more present we are, we could say we're on a higher timeline. Now, when we talk timelines, we're talking from a human perspective. This is a term or an idea that our human brain can understand, timeline, right? When we could talk then about frequency, which is really a quantum experience or definition of a timeline, where things just vibrate at different frequencies. Okay, so the higher
Mm.
the frequency, the more energy is moving, the more open or conscious of a reality that you're going to experience. So throughout your day, you're continually like navigating through different states of being. So you
Mm.
may get triggered in one moment, you may get angry, you may get judgmental. You're anchoring yourself into a more of a 3D timeline in that moment, meaning you're going to experience 3D types of events, right? You're going to have more of that negativity come forward for you. When you could shift into a heart space and become more of an observer of a situation instead of judging it, but holding compassion, now
Yeah.
all of a sudden, what happens in your reality starts to shift. You start to move into a higher frequency timeline where you're not bombarded by these negative, we call them negative emotions, but more positive, more loving, more compassionate states of being. And that takes practice. That takes
Mm.
awareness and that takes practice because you have to be able to spot when your mind is trying to pull you down into a place of comfort that it's familiar with. Even if it doesn't feel good, it's comforting. And your mind will always try to keep you limited in that fashion to try to keep you safe.
Right. Like safety is like our trauma
Familiar,
response. Yeah.
right? It's familiar. It's, oh, that may be bad, but I know what that is, right? So let's hang there. Let's not get into love. Let's not get into compassion where we can maybe open up to new ways of being because it's unfamiliar.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned the importance of becoming more like heart centered. I think people hear that or we see that it's kind of cliche, but certainly like in my religious tradition, I think there's an emphasis on purification of the heart and becoming more heart
Mhm.
focused. And I think also it relates to this sort of becoming more balanced, like you mentioned, becoming like an observer. Yeah. And then I think, like you said, people need support along the way. How do we do that? Sometimes we have to regulate our nervous systems better and
Mhm.
focus on somatic exercises or whatever that might
Yes.
be. So yeah, tell me a little bit about how your work really focuses on those important areas, like on a practical level.
Yeah, when people come to me, they say, okay, I'm feeling like low vibrational a lot. I've got a lot of anxiety, a lot of trauma coming up. How do I get into the love space? And I said, well, to go from here to here, that's a big ask. So
Mm,
I always guide them into finding space within the heart and just regulate, like you said, regulating their nervous system and just finding a few moments of calm and a few moments of peace. When you could, that's like the bridge. When you could get into calm and you could get into peace and allow your nervous system to just be like, oh, and let go,
mm,
that opens up the floodgates for all of this higher frequency light to enter your system and move through you. So
mm.
that's how I show people how to do that. So instead of making this gargantuan leap that everybody's trying to do, take it into the bridge, into the gateway, into the portal in the heart. Just find peace. Let your body feel that. And when your body feels that state of being enough, it'll start to become the default for
Mm.
how you operate. So you're not going to be running around in fight or flight tension mode all day long. You're going to be at this neutral state now. Right? So
That's
when you're
like
in a
the
neutral state, easier to jump up, to bump up.
yeah, and you call it a with the zero is a 0 point balance, right? In
Mm-hmm.
the quantum
Like
energy.
getting
Because
into the state of flow and just being and trusting and
hmm
not trying to go real high vibe, high frequency, not trying to avoid the low, but just taking conscious control and saying, you know what, I'm going to find peace in this moment. And this,
right.
returning back to that, that's like the well of abundance, right? That's the well of calm and the well of peace. Just get in here and just allow yourself to calm down, and you'll realize things are going to open up for you. That's when people get downloads. All this information starts moving through their system and they're able to perceive it because they're present with it.
Like you mentioned, it was initially an out of body experience for
Mhm.
you. And so is that what you call connecting to the quantum field then? Is that really what we mean when we're saying helping recognize how to connect with intentionality to the quantum field?
Connecting to me with the quantum field is getting into that space of neutrality. Now, when I was in my backyard and I popped out of my body, that was a very unintentional thing. I wasn't looking for this. It just happened. Everything lined up. It was my moment to be able to open up. And essentially, what it was, a big aspect of me that was on a higher frequency realm, multidimensional energy, dropped in and just move through my system. So when we could get into a space of peace and a space of calm, and I was meditating, I was listening to music and I was in a meditative state. So I was in a state that was conducive to that. that's when we allow these experiences to start to come forward. So it's always going in, not trying to find it out here.
Like you mentioned, the meditative states or reaching these, I know there's alpha, beta, gamma, there's
Mhm.
all these different waves, and you're trying
Yeah.
to maybe tap into that. And tell me a little bit about that field, or the unity consciousness. Some people refer to it, like you said, it's looking inward, not trying to find something external to yourself, but we were talking about earlier
Yeah.
with that separation. So how does this all relate to that concept around like unity consciousness, or what we're tapping into when we're doing that, or source, or concepts around that being God and all of that?
Yeah. We are unity consciousness.
Yeah.
So think about it as that we're unity consciousness kind of focused in, and I like to use the analogy of looking through a straw into a human condition, into a human
Yeah.
being. In order to really experience unity consciousness, you got to step outside of being that human. So we want to shut down some of the senses, right? We want to close our eyes, we want to breathe, connect with the body, connect and hear, right? And that slows things down. It slows your brain waves down. You get into alpha and theta brainwave states. And when you could get out of that beta brainwave state, get into alpha and theta, something magical happens. Doesn't happen right away. It may not happen every time you meditate, but eventually you are going to get out of your own way and you're going to forget momentarily that you're a human being. And you're going to connect to something greater. And that something greater is the totality of you. And that's available to anyone in any given moment. In fact, it's available to you right now. You're just like looking through that straw. You're turned away from it, right? So when we could slow down the noise or cut out the noise and get inside, and breath work is fantastic for that, because when you focus on your breath, you are taking that mental energy that wants to keep you distracted and you're giving it something productive to do. And you get into the body and you start to be able to regulate your heartbeat by regulating your breath. Your nervous system lets go of all that tension and anxiety, and something new, something greater then can come forward.
Yes, I love that. And it sounds like this would be like a great time to reflect on how maybe the clients that you work with. I know you talk about working with light workers. So obviously people who maybe are working with you are already on
Yeah.
their awakening journey, or maybe
Yeah.
they're already healers or practitioners. Who are you really helping with your work right now? And what kind of sort of transformations are they seeing, and where are they going with this work?
These are people who have come to me and they were really in dire straits regarding their journey. They're like, I've been trying all of these things and I just cannot get it. There's a piece missing. And I start out by telling them that they have everything that they have within. It's just, first of all, learning to trust that you have that gift. Some people will come to me in my New You program. They want to connect with their higher self. They want to connect with their guides. They want to open up more of their gifts. And I said, that's great. These are all side effects of turning inward and becoming present. These kind of things just start to manifest. I have one woman in a New You right now who just realized that she has this ability to connect with animals telepathically. So now she's starting to do that kind of. We're actually two people in the group are connecting with animals. I have another woman who came to me who joined a New You, was having these very dark experiences, like psychic attacks. She was feeling like she was being attacked day in, day out, very terrifying. And she has now navigated through those traumas and that fear, and is now like those have transmuted into a peaceful, loving connection. So her guides now are starting to come through. So it's about getting out of your own way. And I've got some other people in the group who are just really looking to maybe reconnect with abilities that they've once had, but have lost just because of the conditioning of life. So we're navigating through those waters and navigating through the healing process to reconnect them with their higher self and their guides. So all types of people, but it's those who really are committed. That's the thing. It's the people who are really committed to doing this work. They want to be accountable to themselves. They want to be accountable to the group, and they are really committed, and they are coachable, and they just want the support. They want the
Yeah.
reminder constantly, each and every week, that they've got this. And those are
Yeah.
the
And
success stories. Yeah.
yeah, and it sounds a lot of us here have had maybe experiences as kids where we felt like more in touch with supernatural or intuitive abilities, and
Mhm.
maybe some of that stuff gets blocked as we get older. So it
Yeah.
sounds to me like people who are coming online with some of these abilities, or they want to even increase their intuitive or telepathic or some sort of abilities like that. So are you seeing a lot of those increasing intuitive abilities come online right
Yes.
now? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's happening. And the interesting thing is, we don't go about it in terms of, okay, your goal is to increase your intuitive ability. How it works and how I teach it in the program is when you can learn to become present and establish a deeper state of presence, that unlocks everything. And that's where people get lost because they're trying to do these things externally. They want to connect with their higher self, or they want to connect with their guide, and they're getting courses and reading these books. And they're really not just connecting with the fact that they need to get inside and find and establish a deeper state of presence. And in order to do that, you got to navigate through all the weeds that have been blocking the doorway, right? So you're going to have to feel some things that maybe don't feel so good. You're going to have to face some things that maybe you've been avoiding facing for a while. But I teach them how to do that so that they can live a life more in a state of presence and flow and grace and just become available for all of that amazing magic that was there the whole time. They just didn't have the capacity to be able to experience it. So now they're starting to experience it.
And I've heard this, you use the word capacity, and I love that because I feel like so much of the healing journey is not, it's like about increasing our capacity to feel things, to love, to be having our emotional connections, especially when things have been, there have been blockages or been cut off and things like that. I think it sounds really spot on that we're trying to increase our capacity to hold the higher levels of, now we're hearing about the higher level frequencies of light and upgrading our consciousness and all of the light body upgrades, right?
Think about it. A lot of people come to me and they say they're just anxious all the time. They're feeling down. They're maybe feeling a little bit depressed, call this spiritual depression. And that they're being pointed in a direction by their higher self because that's something that needs to be seen. It needs to be felt. Think about taking a big part of your energy and ripping it off and putting it out here in anxiety, right? That anxiety is not available. That energy is not available to you to be available to experience more of these higher dimensional fields. So when you can reintegrate that energy by going into it and bringing it back into the body, your frequency increases, right? You start vibing faster, and that attracts in more of your higher self, and you start to have these amazing magical connections and experiences that you just weren't able to perceive before because you weren't as present and as available to do it.
Right. And so much of it, I think you were talking, you'll hear terms like transmuting the energy, like lower frequency. So you have to go into this, and you mentioned like the dark night of the soul process and how to really alchemize, mute these energies from negative to positive, right?
And we run from that, right? It's like nobody wants to dive into that kind of stuff. By not diving into it, you're leaving a big portion of your energy off the table and you're not available. You're not as whole, right? We talk about unity consciousness. We need to be unified field, right? We want to take our energy that was fragmented here because of our traumas and our experiences and bring it back into the mix.
Yeah. And like, how's that the saying go? You have to go through it to heal it, through it to heal it, not around it. I don't know. I always forget that quote, but you can't go around it. You have to go through it to heal it. That's really what's happening, I feel like, especially right now. So maybe talk a little bit about this ascension process and why the timing is such, and energetically and astrologically and galactically, what is happening and why is it so important right now? Because I know in religions we have this end of days or apocalyptic concept. So tell me a little bit about that ascension process and what's happening right now.
If we look at it from the human perspective, from the 3D timeline, the Earth is going through an ascension process right now. And from a quantum perspective, it's an energetic purging, essentially, or an energetic up-leveling. All of this dense energy that's been keeping the Earth at a lower frequency timeline, which we've directed, which a lot of people don't think we've directed, we create our reality. Okay, so a lot of times we want to say it was caused by this or caused by that, but it was a way that we can experience complete and total separation. Okay, but it's to the time now where the Earth is ready to rise back up in frequency. So we are going through this process of alchemizing all of that dense energy that's been locked or stuck in the Earth's energetic field. So we come down in here and we inherit that energetic field. We are Earth, right? We're walking
Yeah.
Earth. Our physical bodies are manifested from Earth. So we come in here, we take on a body, we take on that energy, and then we, as higher dimensional conscious beings, come in here and we alchemize the density. So we're assisting the planet in the ascension process. We have other aspects of us that are high frequency that are here to support us as well. We could call those our star guides, the archangels, the angels, however you want to phrase it or term it. These are what I was talking about earlier, aspects of us that are on this frequency ladder that reside up here. So Earth is moving into a phase now where it can support those types of realities to start to come through. So we're starting to have more experiences with our ET guides. People are having more sightings. More people are coming online with their intuitive abilities and gifts. That's just part of the experience we signed up for. And it's quite an amazing and magical time. From the eyes of the human, it looks like a disaster, right? But we created this so that we can experience this.
Yeah. And purge it out. Like you said, it's a processing. It's like
it's a transmutation or alchemization of dense energy. So Earth came down, or down in frequency, and now it's coming back up. And we're here for the ride to experience the whole thing.
Yeah, I love it. I had a question about the beings or the energies that you said we're starting to interact with in terms of frequency of light, angelic beings, ETs. So what do you say when people are very skeptical of interfacing or it's like the concept of there's no intermediaries between us and God. Like we actually, even though we can channel Metatron or channel people or beings, like we actually should steer clear and only allow a clear channel direct to God, because otherwise there's energetic being interferences. And especially, in Islam, we have the unseen realm and Jinn and demonic entities. There's not all of these angelic beings are good. So how do we deal with some of that, and how do you really help people understand what to think about these different layers of energetic beings that we're encountering?
That's a really interesting one, because the answer to that question is multidimensional and multifaceted based on where your level of consciousness is. So if you are at a lower frequency, you can in fact have experiences that are dark, okay? Right. Because you're letting your fears control your reality. So if you're vibing at a low frequency, you will attract and experience energy that matches that. Okay. But it's all the thing is that people don't realize is that it's all being controlled within them. So I have this woman in a new you who, as I said, was having very dark experiences. She was terrified, late at night and things like that. And since joining a new you and working with me, she's transmuted that energy, and it started within her. Being able to look at her fear, look at her programming, look at things that she's seen, heard, and read online about be careful, watch out, these kind of things. There's danger. And we started to work through that. And she basically raised her vibration, right, to a point where those experiences were no longer part of her reality. So they turned from dark to light. So it all happened from within her. When I first was contacted by the Galactic Federation, one of the things they did was work with me, because I had fear, because I had visitations when I was young that were very terrifying. They helped me clear that. And there were times when they came through as dark. And I remember having to sit with that and work through those limiting beliefs and work through those fears, alchemize that density. And then all of that shifted, and that cleared the channel. So when you talk about being able to have a direct channel to source, that's going to be based upon the individual's frequency and their beliefs, and what level of consciousness are they at in that moment. That will determine what reality they produce and they experience. So the control is always within us.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, because like you described, people have spiritual psychosis or fall into the dark chambers of not having demonic entities, attachments, all these things. It just depends on, like how you said, how you're creating your own experience of working through that. That's how it's going to go. Yeah, I love that so much, Mark. And I know I would love to keep talking about this because it's so fascinating.
Oh, I know, right? It's fun,
I want to make but I want to make sure we get people to know where they can find you and where to go for your program. I know you mentioned the new you. So where's the best place for people to follow you or find you online if they're interested to hear more?
YouTube, Marc Abrams,
Oh,
it's Mark with a
yeah.
C, okay,
Uh-huh.
is a great place to start. Instagram and Facebook are both soul integration coach.
Okay.
My website is
Yeah.
soul integration.
Oh,
And a
awesome.
new you, if you click on the link in Instagram or Facebook, there's going to be an opportunity for you to, anybody who's listening to this, to book a free discovery call with me for my new you program.
Yes.
That's a great place to start. Get on the phone or on a Zoom call just like this, talk about where they may be stuck. And if the program's a good fit, that's a great place to start. I have another course called Learn How to Perceive Energies and Auras, which
Mm.
is a fantastic course. That's in that link as well, either through Instagram, it's on my website, or Facebook. It's activating and opening your third eye. So that's a really fun course. By the end of the course, people are able to see auras.
Oh,
So
I love it.
that's a great place to start for people if they want to get, stick their toe into this
Yes.
and start to work with me. But if they're stuck, if anybody out there listening to this is really stuck, they've tried all these things, they want to really get to the root of what's been holding them back, schedule that discovery call. I'd love to get on the phone and speak with them.
Yeah, amazing. I'll have all of that linked here under the episode, and we'll put out all that information as soon as it's released. So I love that. And I just like that opening up your third eye. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
great kind of go-to thing we're all experiencing. What is this third eye and all that stuff? Yeah, I love that you make it really simple and easy for people, and you have step-by-step process that people can click into as they're on their journeys. Yeah, I love that, Mark. And I just wanted to see if there's any final thoughts or words of wisdom or things you'd like to share with our audience here before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think it's important to just remind people that they are the creators of their reality. So if you're experiencing something day in, day out that really just doesn't resonate with you, you want to make a change, you can't get out of your own way, that's a sign that it's time to really turn it inward and start to just find, like I said earlier, that sense of peace and that spaciousness, and things will start to unlock for you. It's just an amazing time. We're being fully supported by our guides. They're there, they're ready, they're willing. We've got this. I don't know what else
We've
to
got
say.
this.
We're here for this magical time. Let's embrace it.
Right. And it is such a magical time. And I feel like we've all been going through the ringer of our share of whatever turmoil and negative
Oh, yeah.
experiences. And we're in this sort of breakthrough, pivotal turning point. At least that's how I feel. And evidence of from astrology and everything we've talked about seems to
Yeah.
reinforce this. So yeah,
I
I
know we
love
need to
that.
get into that, but yeah,
I
I mean,
know.
it's all there. It's all out there for us to see. We just have to be able to open our eyes and be like, yes, there it
Yes.
is.
Yes, welcome it in. Thank you so much, Mark. I love that. And hopefully I can have you on again in the future because these were great
Absolutely.
topics and I absolutely loved having you. I hope everyone will follow Mark, find his content online. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate.
Thank
Have a
you.
great, thank you. Have a
Okay.
great day.